beautiful spring day. Filmed some mustard coming up here. Gonna wait till everyone comes in. I'm hoping some people are out there on this beautiful Friday afternoon. It's 12:15, and this is the Sacramento Family Courthouse. We came here last week because we were ordering Gary Webb's divorce file. And for those of you who don't know, hi, Johnny. I'm really happy that you're here. I was waiting a few minutes. Can you hear me okay, Johnny? Give me a thumbs up. I need to make sure that the sound is working. Johnny, you're my sound check. Okay. So I did try to fiddle with the horizontal film, so you guys are going to have to put up with another vertical live stream. Maybe when I see Sam Joaquin in a couple weeks, he can help me out with that. So I'm out at the Sacramento Family Courthouse. And if you recall, I did a short because there was a little bit of a nasty bailiff that came out here and told me I couldn't record here. So I'm standing on the grass across the way from the courthouse. If there's any policy of the court that I can't do this, that's going to be a problem. We'll deal with that issue. Maybe they'll send the bailiffs out. But I want to talk about Gary Webb's divorce file. So we came up here and ordered the file, and it was in storage because it was an old paper file. So they had to order it and then notify us that it was here. And then we had to come up here and, yes, that is correct. Whoever the battle just said, have you seen, and I'm got to be careful what I say in my live stream, but yes, that was the Netflix movie about Gary Webb. And so if anybody has seen that, they might know a little bit of his story. But I'm up here with my reporting partner, who's a longtime retired investigative reporter who actually worked with Gary Webb at the Sacramento News and Review when his divorce case was going on. And so that is a big deal because a movie has told some things, but there was a lot left out, especially what was going on with his divorce and his child support and his custody and garnishments on his reporter wages and things like that. So, anybody who's ever been in family court and dealt with child support and garnishments, you probably know that regular folks with W 2 wages can get their wages garnished, whereas wealthy individuals who work for corporations that can determine there's actually in family law, there's a thing considered the Smith-Ostler. When somebody is wealthy or runs their own business and can control their income, then you look more to what they pay themselves and is reported. And so a lot of times people who are getting spousal or child support from somebody who runs a business and can take a lot of expenses and dilute their income down, they have a more difficult time, believe it or not, getting child support. And so Gary Webb was a regular 1099 worker or W 2 worker, and his wages were garnished in child support. And that was happening right at the time of the Netflix movie taking place about what happened to him. And so we are going to go through his divorce file. He had a pretty quick divorce. It was in the early 90s. And we today found out who the lawyers in the case were. And obviously, the lawyers change over time, but we're looking at patterns of the lawyers that make the conflict worse. We're looking at the issues that family courts do to individuals that are sometimes not realistic. There was recently a law passed in California, I think it's SB 1055, that says if you have your driver's license suspended because of unpaid child support, you can get it back. You can get your license back, and that's actually happening on right now. A lot of people are trying to clear their licenses, and there's a mixed bag on child support, and I'm going to talk about that for a minute. Child support, when Department of Child Support Services gets involved, there's usually only one attorney. So if there are private attorneys in the case, they won't give you child support services. And if one of the parties is representing themselves, this is kind of a problem. But custodial flips, where one parent loses complete custody, is really related to child support because there's a lot of federal funding behind that. And it makes an incentive for the judges and the lawyers to do full custodial flips because it unleashes federal funding. But for everyday people, if you have somebody not paying child support, and I'm going to do this both sides. I'm going to talk about, we're not going to talk about gender because it happens to both. Say you are the stay-at-home parent and you have the majority of custody time, you're entitled to support. Well, in some states like Texas, they cap that. So it doesn't matter how wealthy somebody is, child support is a flat fee per kid. Whereas in California, it's based on the income of the parties and a formula that you put through what they call the DISO master. And usually you'll see the judges don't have the competence to do it, so individual attorneys will do it. And then once you get a child support judgment, you can go to have it enforced. If somebody has W-2 wages, you can have it enforced that way. And if you are 1099 or a contractor or own your own business, it's really hard to chase that support. You may have to wait for a year. So we don't do a lot of great things with child support. It certainly doesn't go to support the kids at the time when it's needed. If one parent doesn't have the ability to pay, there's not a lot of accommodations. There actually had to be lawsuits to make people not responsible for paying child support while they were incarcerated. I have the case law on that, and I'll try to get that. But imagine that somebody's incarcerated. Obviously, they can't work, but the child support obligation continues, and so does the interest on it. So somebody could be incarcerated, be completely innocent, let out of jail a year or 2 years later, and they could still have the child support obligation, which would be a crushing debt with interest. And the other thing that people don't know is that the interest on child support, when it is collected by the government, it doesn't go to the supported party or the children. It goes to the courts and the government. And there is the incentive for that. So we know that at the time of Gary Webb's death, when Steve was working with him at the Sacramento News and Review, that he had a child support garnishment. He was down to a motorcycle for his transportation. And, when it's foggy in Sacramento or it's rainy, that's a little difficult. He was a reporter, he wasn't making much money. And so we were just informed that in order to see the entire file and what was going on in the case, which we have part of the version of that, we're going to need to go to the court and ask for the case to be unsealed. So, sealing divorce cases is a very rare occurrence. And there was a case involving Clint Eastwood, the famous movie actor, and his girlfriend, and they were trying to seal the case and the courtroom in that case. And the judge said, no, you can't do that. A lot of police officers have confidential marriages. Reporters can even have confidential marriages. So if you're in something that could put you at risk, if somebody saw your public court file, you can move to get the entire court file sealed. You can also get a confidential marriage, and a lot of police officers get confidential marriages. So right now I have several judge and lawyer sources and police officers that work in that courtroom that are involved in divorces, that are contemplating divorces. And so my number one advice to everybody is stay out of court, because there is nothing good the government is going to do for you or your family. You're never going to collect the support you think you deserve. And you might be burdened with support you can't pay that will create a lifetime issue. And so if you're ever married or get together with someone to have children, your very best bet is to work it out and not involve the government. So we're going to talk about that some more. We're going to talk about the Gary Webb case. But for any of you who've seen the Netflix special on Gary Webb, it starts with a K word and it ends in the messenger. And that is really a common situation for reporters, that a lot of what we do is dicey. And so when we have our own issues, my divorce case is very public and published decisions. And, the judges that I'm investigating and reporting on love to get to me through my divorce case. And so we know these are the retaliation things that happen to reporters overall. And if you have ever followed Gary Webb's work, you know what he did, what he reported on, how controversial it was. But the most important part of Gary Webb's work was he worked for the San Jose Mercury, which, as you know, I'm very critical of because they were members of that bar bench media police committee. And they were members of that committee when Gary Webb was doing his reporting. And what happened was when Gary Webb started publishing the articles, it was entitled Dark Alliance, and it was really about drugs and different things like that and how it was moving throughout our country. And when he published Dark Alliance, it was considered some stellar investigative work. But what ended up happening was immediately after it was published, I don't know if it was sensing competition or too much alignment with the government. It was the New York Times and the Washington Post that tried to discredit. So they were disking Gary Webb's work. And that's infighting in the journalism world. And right after that, his career really started to take a downward turn, and his divorce was filed during all of that. That's really hard on reporters when they're getting backlash or what I call infighting from the mainstream media when they work in the mainstream media. So, for those of us who report on social media, we're used to getting bashed by mainstream media. And frankly, when I started doing this, I had to pick a side. Do I want to report like mainstream media does, or do I want to do it the way we do it here on social media? And I decided that social media was far more effective. I still believe that we can have journalistic integrity and follow journalistic ethics, everything that I've been members of and associations of. But we need investigative reporters to go look into why judges are closing courtrooms and sealing divorce files. And there is nobody else in the country reporting on these family law cases. So, to the judges, the attorneys, and the cops that are my off record sources that are going through their own divorces, a lot of what I do is for everybody who is part of the process, but then also finds themselves in the process. So, and Johnny Bravo, thanks for saying I picked the right side. Johnny Bravo, I just want to say that it's people like you that make me feel like I did pick the right side. You, it doesn't matter what time of day I turn on my live stream. It doesn't matter if I do a short. It doesn't matter when my videos come up. There are certain people here, and I can't name them all. I am trying to look at your comments a little bit, but um, you guys come in and you support us. And the first time I saw that was when I went to Los Gatos Police to make a records request. And I think there were 200 people watching my records request. And this is the work that journalists do every day. Nobody sees it. They think that we're not working. We hear get a real job all the time. This is our job. And we show our work and we try to show you, and we tried not to give too much of our opinions, but report the facts so that you can apply it to how it relates to you. So I'm going to leave this live stream up. I'm not walking around, so I am going to walk up to the door where they told me I wasn't allowed to walk. And that bothered me last week when I was here. I just went to get a little recording of the outside of the courthouse because this is where Gary Webb's file was. And a deputy came out and told me that I wasn't allowed to record because of some court policy. So legacy news cameras can park outside of courthouses all the time. These public files are public. You have to walk here through a public court, public parking, public everything. And it's in the middle of a business complex. I'm also going to walk down here and I'm going to show you guys one other thing. So First Amendment activity is right to religion. You guys know all the things. And I really focus on what these courts are doing, not just in courtrooms. Judge Hendrickson closing a courtroom a couple weeks ago is really disturbing to me. And we're going to do more in this on our videos, but I encourage you to go over to Father in Exile. He did a little video yesterday about a remote recording of Cindy Hendrickson's proceedings. And right after those proceedings took place, Cindy Hendrickson recused from the case as her disqualification was pending. So I want to explain that. So a disqualification is a statement that you file formally in court. You have to verify it, sign it under penalty of perjury. And when you do, you are saying the judge is biased and you're giving some reason why the judge is biased. And so what happened was Cindy Hendrickson was accused of not disclosing that she had sat on the Domestic Violence Council Committee with Nicole Ford for years, first as a prosecutor and then as a judge. I'm going to show you the public parking and then we're going to talk to this guy. He's out here, and this is, you're on my live stream. I'm giving you a little business. So you guys, your business is called Help You File, right? So this is a business called Help You File. It's right outside. Do you have a permit? Do they make you have a permit to be here?
Oh, I just have it with the people who own the property.
Oh, so you went to the property owner because the court doesn't own the property. They lease it.
The court also leases the property. And the people who own this property own that first.
You have 100 people watching you right
now. Oh, the people who own the property here also own the property over there and then the other building there. They sold that one over that way.
So you stand here because I was told last week when I was here, I couldn't even record outside that courthouse.
Really?
They told me it was a court policy. So I was wondering if that's why you're all the way down here.
Oh, no. I also help the property owners as well. Call them up when the elevators break down or people are putting stuff on top of the, like if people are having flyers put on their cars.
Right.
You don't want to mess up the area even more, right?
Right. So this, you guys help people. And so this is really for pro pers, people who don't have an attorney. You help them learn how to file and learn what's the cost range? What do you charge for that?
What we do is we fill out all the paperwork and we turn it into the courthouse. It's kind of a one-stop shop.
So you file it too? Mm-hmm. And do you process serve too?
They have a process server as well, but we don't just process serve. All of the paperwork is filled out by certified law students who are overseen by attorneys, and the paperwork goes to the attorneys before it goes to the courthouse.
So it's reviewed by attorneys, but the attorneys are not representing the people. They're just making sure their paperwork is in order.
Not generally, but we do have the attorneys on staff, so if people did need an attorney, they could hire one through us in two fashions, one being the normal attorney and the other being limited scope, meaning they could show up one time on one issue in court with you.
Right. And I don't know that a lot of people know that, but it is very challenging to represent yourself in court if you've been a doctor, a nurse, a stay-at-home mom, a teacher, and all of a sudden you have to know all the law equal to an attorney. So that's what your business helps with. And I haven't seen this in other court areas so are you pretty busy?
Generally. The problem is we get law students in and out all the time, and so we get people coming back and forth. Sometimes they'll show up to us with one law student and then they'll end up with another law student. But it all just kind of depends. On average, though, we kind of get our law students kind of poached by other companies.
I can imagine.
So obviously we're doing something right.
Right. So this is, if you are in Sacramento and you find yourself in family court and you can't afford a lawyer, I just saw their sign and he's out here every day because he was here last week. He's smart enough to know, don't ask permission from the court that you're helping people. And I don't know if you know this, but 90% of people in family court are self-represented because they can't afford an attorney.
I wouldn't doubt that, especially with the economy these days.
Yeah. So do you see fluctuations in your business with the economy?
It kind of depends. It's more of a seasonal thing. Like, I think kind of like as the year starts up, people are like, new year, new me. So they're like, time for a divorce. Or like,
don't do that, people.
Or like Valentine's Day just passed by and people didn't like what they got probably. So what is it? Time for a divorce.
So one time I was in an Uber in Arizona and the guy was talking about his divorce and he said all up it cost him under $500. And I'm from Santa Clara County, where people are sanctioned $1 million and spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorneys. So the cost really does vary, but it's good to see up here in Sacramento that this is an option for people when they do that. So
pay as you go service. They're not taking the whole arm at once. They're just taking little bits.
right. So in taking little bits, it means you don't have to come up with a $30,000 retainer, which a lot of attorneys will typically ask for these days.
Mhm.
So you're kind of in the business of putting attorneys out of business.
A little bit. I mean, the difference between us and the attorneys is the fact that the attorneys will generally take the bigger cases. In our case, we take the smaller cases, the simpler ones that people don't want to have to spend $30,000 on an attorney for.
And do you help people if they want to get transcripts in their hearings? Have you heard about the court reporter transcript problem lately?
I haven't heard anything about that. That's new to me.
So in California, there's a lawsuit right now at the California Supreme Court that says for low and modest income people, which sounds like your client base, that they're entitled to a transcript, a court reporter in present making a record of the transcript, but they still have to pay for the transcript itself. And so right now, government code that prohibits electronic recordings of family law proceedings, unlimited civil and probate proceedings. And so what they're fighting for is electronic recording in all of those proceedings because of the conflict right now. And then people could get more affordable transcripts for their hearings, which that's your market. So anyway, I'm going to read through questions. Somebody says, don't stand in the same spot for too long. It works for you. And anyway, if anybody has any questions they want to ask, this is the Help You File business. I noticed them across the way. He was here last week. He's smart enough to get permission from the owner of the entire building complex and not the family court. And I see our other investigative reporter coming down the road right now. We just ordered the Gary Webb file.
I have one thing I could say. Across the street from the courthouse, if people are trying to get a restraining order, like a family law restraining order, yes, like a DVRO, on the third floor of the building across the street from it, you can actually get help with that for free.
Who does that?
I'm not sure which people do it. I've just been told by the people who are on the third floor there.
So like a pro bono group?
Yes.
Okay. That's more information for anybody looking to file a DVRO. And we'll be talking about that more later too. So I hope that gives you guys some good information. And keep in mind, this is here. If you are pro per, can't afford an attorney, and you're in the Sacramento Family Courthouse for divorce or custody cases, then this is a good option. We're going to walk back over because I see the reporter taking pictures. So thanks. Bye. Okay. So we're going back to the old crusty old reporter. Let's see what you're live. You're live, just to let you know. Oh, he's not ready to talk. He's one of those crusty old reporters but we got some photographs, we got some information today, and we interviewed the guy who's been out here. Steve used to investigate family court cases here in Sacramento for a number of years. And so we're going to talk about Linda Boblet, who had one of the first civil DV trials. And we're going to talk about her case. We're going to talk about Gary Webb. There's some very interesting cases up here in Sacramento. So I'm going to tune out now, you guys, and watch for my live stream because we're going one more place today.